he was waiting patiently, and I appreciate him for doing so. You sent me the bio that you wanted me to read, so I'm not going to read the one that I had at my disposal. I'm going to read the one that you sent me. We are joined with Justin Podur, host of Anti-Empire Project podcast and YouTube channel. I just want to make sure I got the last name correct. Podur?
Yeah. I allow many different pronunciations. I usually say Podur, but
Podur. Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough. People butcher my name also, so I totally understand it. I always try to get it right, even though
my parents are from Kerala, and
where's Kerala?
Kerala's a state in southern India, and Thomas is one of the most popular last names in Kerala for Christians.
Is it? Fair enough.
I know a lot of people named Thomas. People in my family named Thomas.
When I'm in like a Muslim country, they would say something like I'm from Egypt, and they would hear Jamal, and they would be like, "Oh, Jamal!" Like, and it's like, but I put an R in the name. Well, my mom put an R in it, and so they're like, "Why is that R?" It's like in America, we don't need much to just go with it. But thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate you joining me in this.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. I watch your show all the time. All the time I watch this.
Do you? Kisses on the ego are always appreciated. Always appreciated. So this news broke. And from my point of view, it was a no duh, but apparently some people are surprised that they are now ripping the face off of, ripping the mask off. Netanyahu decides on full occupation of the Gaza Strip, IDF activity in the area with hostages, PMO says. Now, they have been angling for this. And my argument has been that is exactly what they've been wanting to do from the entire time. And you can tell just by the way, when you're blowing up hospitals, schools, buildings, when you're taking down apartment complexes, you're sticking dynamite to like entire blocks and then blowing it up. You're trying to create a space where there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. And you do it almost in this kind of robotic, strategic way. And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, well, we're going to make these barricades, these barriers, and we're going to make people get closer in a pin of sorts. Okay, you're angling for something. That's not random. And you get all of these Israelis coming out saying, well, we don't know why Netanyahu is doing this. Why is Netanyahu doing this? Why doesn't Netanyahu end the war? And it's like, what are you not seeing in this process? Like, it was weird to me that they seemed befuddled by what was taking place. They were trying to get rid of the population of Gaza. And if they had to kill or evacuate, they were willing to do either of those things. Give me your take on this, or am I getting this wrong? Do I not see this clearly?
Yeah, I don't know that it's that so much that they have been planning to do this as they have been doing this. And what I mean is, there's no part of Gaza that's been not bombed, right? There's no part of Gaza where, I mean, Israeli troops have also been everywhere in Gaza. They've been in every neighborhood. They've been in every hospital. They've been in every school. They've been in every church. They've been everywhere. They've been on every square inch of Gaza, murdering, raping, pillaging, and destroying everything. So what this announcement means, like, if you think about the very beginning, October 7th, 8th, 2023,
right?
Netanyahu said, we're going to kill everybody. He referenced a book of Joshua, a Bible story, and he said, this is Amalek, and we're going to kill everybody. Yeah. And so did his defense minister, and so did his foreign minister. And Israel Katz has been saying the same thing now, the guy who replaced the previous ICC fugitive. So if you think about what they were saying from the beginning, we're basically going for extermination. And then Netanyahu announcing with great fanfare that we're going for occupation. That's actually a step down. Like, so this announcement to me is there's some kind of psychological effect that it's intended to have. As far as the ground, what's going on the ground, it doesn't change anything on the ground. The issues on the ground are the state of the Israeli army, which is rather bad, and which is why Netanyahu's received some pushback for this from the army for this announcement. The issue on the ground from the Palestinian perspective is that the entire Gaza Strip is a free fire zone, which means the Israelis bomb everywhere. They designate zones as safe. They announce safe zones and bomb those. The all the crossings are closed. So none of that is going to change. There's no prospect in the short term of the people of Gaza getting air defense or nor of Israel opening the crossings. So what exactly is Netanyahu talking about when he says, I'm going to occupy Gaza? I mean, he's basically announcing something political. He's basically trying to say there's not going to be any end to this conflict through a ceasefire. And when he says, I'm going to operate in zones where the hostages are, which they've also done. They've killed many of the hostages by bombing them. He's basically trying to get the Israeli society more and more used to the idea that all the hostages are going to die. And all the hostages are going to die as the price of the Israeli plan to kill all the people of Gaza. So the announcement of occupation is not what it sounds like. This is basically a kind of a political maneuver to prime Israeli society for basically the loss of all the hostages, the absence of a ceasefire negotiation for the foreseeable future. And the truth about that is also that it doesn't really matter what he says, because if there's sufficient pressure for a ceasefire, then he'll accept a ceasefire too. If there's sufficient pressure, if the Israeli army collapses, he's not going to be able to occupy Gaza anyway. So this is one of the points that I'm always trying to make on my channel, which is you don't watch what they say, you watch what's happening on the battlefield. And the battlefield is what will determine what happens here, not Netanyahu's announcement of occupation. That doesn't mean things that politicians like him say don't matter. It just means you have to read it a little bit differently. This whether he can occupy Gaza, whether they can exterminate everybody in Gaza, that all depends on what the resistance always calls the bigger equation, right? The correlation of forces.
How do you see this in a grand, let's say zooming out of Gaza for a moment, because after October 7th, they're using it to justify pretty much every atrocity that they commit. And whether this is attacking Lebanon, whether this is attacking Syria, whether this is attacking the West Bank, I mean, because you have settlers effectively killing people in the West Bank. Nobody talks about it, but video after video after video shows it. Harvesting organs, apparently rapes. I mean, they've used October 7th to justify what is, for all intents and purposes, just expansion into trying to create this greater Israel. And I guess there are two questions with this. First, do you think it is possible for them to accomplish their objectives in Gaza, which is, again, either extermination or evacuation? Effectively, we need to get these people out, or we need to kill them all. Because I don't see another option in this. It's not like they're accepting a two-state solution. And from the Israeli point of view, a two-state solution is a no-go. I've spoken to Netanyahu's, he was Netanyahu's former press secretary. And it was a no-go. Yeah, it's like a one-state solution is off the table and the two-state solution is impossible. So it's like, okay, so what do you have? You have either execution of everybody, just murder, or evacuation.
It's what they want. Is it possible? Yeah. It's possible. I've been humbled the past couple of years because I didn't think I was talking to a fellow activist yesterday about this, because he was saying something not about exactly what you say, but he was saying something like, well, that's just impossible. That'll never happen, kind of thing. And I replied to him, I said, yeah, I didn't think this world we're living in right now was possible. So, we are living in a time of like completely unthinkable. But what they want and what they get are always different, because what they want is whatever fantastical scenario they dream up from their most genocidal fantasies, and that's part of the world they live in now. They live in this world where everything that they want is given to them, and all they can seem to think of to do is more and more murder and more atrocities. Whatever, that's what they want. But when you say things like it's a no-go for Netanyahu and it's a no-go for Israelis, I don't think that's like, I remember reading Malcolm X, one of Malcolm X's interviews, and he had this idea, right, that America was going to, that they were going to partition America, and that there would be part of America that was given over to the black nation, right? And they said to him, like, why would the establishment of America give that to you? And he said it's the circumstances in which a person is when you make that request, right? So right now they're in a situation where every horrific fantasy of theirs is coming true, but the point of resistance is to change those circumstances. So what's a no-go now will not be a no-go under different circumstances. And if you think, again, in October they were saying, remember what Amalek did to you, blah blah blah. In November they had a ceasefire. In November they had a ceasefire. They had a hostage exchange. They were releasing prisoners. They did it again in January of the following year. So they say things that they then contradict all the time, and it just depends on a politician like Netanyahu is someone who lies, first of all, someone who says one thing and does another, and also someone who reads carefully the situation that they're in and takes whatever decision is of maximal benefit to them. And so, things that are a no-go are not always a no-go. Yeah.
But they never believed in those things. It's kind of like Joe Biden saying, hey, I'm doing everything in my power to end the war. When Joe Biden wasn't doing anything to end the war. It's just what you said. We need to rearm, we need to reload, we need to go from point A to point B, we need to help Trump in the election. So we will say this, knowing full well that under no circumstances did they mean it. It's just what he said.
I think my rebuttal to that would just be like, each of the times that Israel has gone for a ceasefire in the past 2 years of warring with everybody, Lebanon, Iran, and twice in Gaza, they said up until the ceasefire that they were never going to have a ceasefire. They were going to destroy Hezbollah, they were going to destroy Iran, regime change Iran, and they're going to exterminate everybody in Gaza. And then suddenly one day it's announced that there's a ceasefire. Is it is the ceasefire what they want? No, but they calculate in the Iran case, they calculated that they would keep getting hit with missiles that they didn't like. In the Lebanon case, they calculated that they would be losing soldiers at a rate in Lebanon that they didn't want to have to do. And with Gaza, it's the same thing. It was they basically calculated somewhere around the morale of their army, the loss of equipment, all of this is wearing them down, and they calculated that they couldn't accomplish those objectives. And that's, again, Netanyahu's announcement yesterday or the day before. It's pretty clear what he's trying to do is remove the hostages from consideration. So if there was any restraint, if there was any pressure for a ceasefire from the resistance holding these prisoners of war, Netanyahu wants to get Israeli society ready to accept that all of those are going to die. Right. And that, I think, is how he's trying to change the equation right now. That's I think the point of what he's doing here. But again, maybe that'll work. Israeli society is pretty far gone. But there are also consequences to being a society that's so far gone that I don't believe that we've seen yet. So if you're a society that's willing to say any prisoner, any military soldier who gets taken prisoner is going to be written off as dead. We don't allow our soldiers to be taken prisoner, and we don't do prisoner swaps. Well, that's going to be I think medium term that's going to be a consideration for Israeli soldiers signing up. It has to be. My comrades are not going to rescue me. My comrades are going to shoot me in the back or bomb me if we get into situations. If the resistance can then adapt their tactics to threaten to capture people and get the Israelis to kill those people for them. There's a lot of things that Israelis are doing now that defy every kind of military and economic logic. And right now it's working out for them. But it's working out for them partly because it's so shocking to everybody that all of these things could be abandoned all at once. The laws of war, the international law, the concept of humanitarian aid, diplomacy, all of these violations are so shocking to everybody, whether it's the resistance or the rest of the world, that everybody's kind of immobilized right now. Everybody's kind of like immobilized and frozen. But like when you get used to that world and you say, okay, these people lie all the time. These people cannot be believed no matter what they're saying. If they say the sky is blue, you have to check. If they say, mammals breathe air, you have to check that. So, if you say once you realize there's no deal, there's no covenant, there's no agreement that these people will enter into that they will honor, that also will change the way you approach deals. If you say if you understand that these people, this army, this society is willing to murder its own soldiers, murder its own civilians in order to gain some kind of advantage over the enemy, that also is something, while shocking at first, a resistance movement that understands that about their enemy can use that to their advantage. So there's a period now of people being frozen and shocked and stunned at this depravity. But I do think that once everybody kind of adjusts to the fact that our leaders and the Israelis are actually work this way, it's not going to be it's not a durable advantage. I don't think it's not like like China has built this industrial base. You can't catch up to China now, right? But it's not a trick. It's an accumulation of work and labor and thinking over decades. And the pager attack or these assassination campaigns in Iran, those are tricks. They're not then it's not the same as some kind of durable advantage. So when you're on to the trick, you can adjust. I don't know how. In Iran's case, it's fairly obvious what they have to do. They have to root out traitors and catch the Mossad cells and things like that. But with Lebanon, it's more difficult to imagine how they can rebuild their communication systems under this total surveillance. And in Gaza, obviously, the priority is survival right now.
Yeah, it's like a tactic of depravity.
Yeah,
it's not a strategic.
That's right. Advantage. That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. No, I do get that. But it started with a tactic of depravity. I mean, the Hannibal directive was in a play on October 7th. I mean, we don't know how many people Israel killed.
That's right. And the what amazes me when we keep going back to that is how ready they were with these lies, how specific, like these 40 beheaded babies, the mass rapes. These are all, they were all ready with these lies. And it's sort of like, what else are they ready with? Like, and how, how people can keep repeating these without any evidence is.
Oh yeah, they still do. Yeah, they still do. On CNN, where the woman was like, they were raping women. Yeah, and it's like, okay, show me one. Just give me one.
And there was a report or some kind of comment by, I think one of these Israeli groups about the latest round when they produced this report, and they basically were arguing that you shouldn't ask for this much evidence because it's such a bad.
Just take our word for it.
Yeah.
Just trust us.
Yeah.
Just trust us. I know we murdered all of these people and starved babies and shot people in the back. It's like, but that baby was dangerous. You need to take our word for it. Yeah. Okay. Sure. But do you? Let me ask you this in more of a widespread question. Do you get the sense that they're accomplishing the objectives?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
so I also don't. So among the casualties of this genocidal 2 years that we've been living through, I think is the concept of objectives. It's very unclear to me what they even want now. There is some kind of pathological behavior where they just keep going. So an objective is something where once you accomplish it, you stop.
Yeah, but Greater Israel seems to be that objective.
Right. Greater Israel, but Israel has never set its borders, right? Israel has never declared its borders. And so, they have this map of Greater Israel that they wear on their arm patches apparently now. And it's like, if they got that, why would they stop there? The outer borders encompass most of Iraq, lots of Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan, all of Lebanon, all of Syria, part of Turkey, but lots of Egypt, of course. If they had all that, they would just keep going because they don't have a way to stop, and they don't have. They're not operating on these kinds of calculations. I think that's one reason. For if we can say that the resistance, led by Nasrallah in the past 2 years, miscalculated, I think what they miscalculated was the rationality of the enemy. I think that they thought that Israel wouldn't expose the Israeli population to all of this destruction by Iranian missiles or by the Hezbollah missile force. I think they thought that they would ultimately want to do some kind of prisoner swap, however favorable or unfavorable, so that their army would know, that their people would know, that their government would do the fundamental thing that governments are supposed to do, which is keep them alive, and do the fundamental thing that armies are supposed to do, which is, take care of their soldiers. And so what they're on now, can they accomplish their objectives? No, they can't, because they have set a rolling objective to exterminate everybody, to dominate everybody, to silence everybody who talks about it, to put in jail everybody who opposes them in the West, to control all political parties, all political discussion, silence all campuses. No, these are not achievable objectives. They're not achievable objectives, and they can do a lot of damage along the way, but they are going to continue until they're stopped. Which is why, again, I hope that the powers in the world, the rising powers in the world, that are not the United States, understand or come to understand this. I don't think they understand this now, but I hope they come to understand that that Israel in particular is not going to respond to diplomacy or peace initiatives or discussions, that they will continue until they are stopped from the outside.
Militarily, or do you mean economically?
All of those things are together. There's I don't see a separation between those things, because I do think that for example, like when I think about the Israeli economy right now, the Israeli economy is being completely propped up by the West, right? By the US. More, and I think it's invisibly so. Like, I don't think we'll ever, or for a long time, for decades maybe, know just how much the numbers that people give of like US giving billions. I don't think it's billions. I think it's tens of billions or hundreds of billions. I think essentially everything that is being done in the Israeli economy is ultimately being paid for by Americans and Canadians, whatever, to a lesser extent. But I think it's total subsidy. I don't think there's anything actually being produced or any value being produced there. The only value being produced there is, the destruction and mass murder. That's what they're doing. They're taking materials produced in America and they're dropping them on the people of Gaza and their other neighbors. So their economy will never be normal, and an abnormal economy can exist for a while, but it's also like an economy is a place where people work, where people have jobs, and where people do exchanges. And that kind of, again, I believe the kind of society that they've become is so bizarre, that's held together by the desire to murder children and commit these atrocities, that I don't believe that can exist indefinitely. I believe it is falling apart, and it's a question of how long it'll take. And then when you think of, like, one of the reasons that it'll never normalize is, for example, the fact that Yemen will never stop sending a couple of missiles a week their way, and there'll always be this tension with Iran, and there'll always be resistance to what they're doing in Lebanon and Syria. And even if they have this dream of getting this total submission of all of their neighbors, but there will always be resistance, and the costs of that go up and down, and at some point they can easily become unbearable. So I don't know. I don't see the short-term prospects are really bad, especially for Gaza, and but the long-term prospects for Israel, I don't even see how it could continue. I don't anymore.
It keeps going. Just to make this point plain, I know we don't see this much, especially it's not entirely reported in the West, but we're here. Cradle, Esteban's outlet, they do fantastic work. Around 80,000 Israeli soldiers are reportedly receiving treatments for injuries sustained since the start of the war in Gaza, according to figures cited by, I guess it's Yedoth, from Israel's Ministry of Defense. Of these, 26,000 are being treated for psychological disorders, PTSD, because, when you're shooting babies, you kind of feel some kind of way about it, right? Israeli media has described the surge in injuries as suicides as a crisis threatening the military system. And, what's wild about this, also the number of deaths, I would wager to you that many of these deaths aren't suicides. These they don't want to own up to the fact that Hamas has been increasing the number of people they've been killing. And I haven't entirely been able to figure out why. Like, meaning, okay, I could be wrong. Maybe they are considered suicide. Either way, there's been a large surge of troops of the IDF that have been getting killed by Hamas. They would come out of bunkers. They would throw bombs on tanks. I mean, just astonishing stuff that these guys were doing in regards to still pursuing the war aim. Obviously, it's not enough in the sense that you have a resistance group fighting a nuclear power, which is why I always cringe when they call it a war. It's not a war, it's a massacre. You have a resistance group, for all intents and purposes, that is fighting a proper, fully backed military, backed by all of the powers of the West. And as you point out, given tens of billions of dollars to maintain their economy as they pursue genocide. And so these things are not equal. And, you get the sense that they were feeling themselves. It's like, hey, look at all these women that we killed. We are fantastic. Our ego is great. And then they go into Lebanon. And it's like, oh, we were able to do this with the pagers. This is fantastic. And then they fight a proper military and get crushed. And then they go back to Lebanon. Okay, let's go back to this.
There's some kind of search for a win, right?
Right.
And the West Bank is even better for that for them, which is like, they already have a. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please finish. I'm sorry.
Well, and being able to search for a win, the best way to get a win for them is to fight somebody who's already surrendered, which is why they're going for these wins in Syria, and they're going for these wins in the West Bank, because the West Bank, you have the Palestinian Authority basically backing them up, doing any operations that they can't do. You have total intelligence penetration, and they're just continuously raiding these towns in the West Bank. Even with Gaza, like you said, if the more troops they send to occupy Gaza, the more of those troops are going to be killed in these resistance operations. That's how it's been for the past couple of years, and there's no reason to think that'll change.
Yeah, give me your take on this idea of the Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas is a humiliation walking. And, he shows up every random blue moon. But effectively, the Palestinian Authority is these allegories to Nazism is very similar in many respects. Nazis used to have Jews help running and managing the ghetto, just like you could say the Israelis, Zionists, have the Palestinian Authority effectively helping running their ghetto. And they're asking, effectively, they're saying, look, you need to give up all your weapons. Mahmoud Abbas will say, hey, you need to give up all your weapons. You dirty, filthy animals, give up your weapons. Talking about in the West Bank. Talking about in Gaza. And they are trying to craft this faculty, I don't know what it is, of using the Palestinian Authority to somehow govern Gaza with the notion that all of the weapons are given up. Now, again, they lost the election in Gaza. Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority is hated, even by its own people. And yet, this is something that they're pushing. It's the point of pushing this because they know it would never be accepted. And just one last point. Hamas has over and over and over again said that they would give up the hostages. Israel just doesn't want to accept any kind of deal in this case. They just want to keep going. It's like a deal. There's no deal that they can accept. But they keep pushing this as a potential, quote unquote, solution. Give me your take on that. I guess this
it goes back to your earlier question, because this question of occupation, again, the concepts of humanitarian aid, which is supposed to be impartial, it's supposed to be demilitarized, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Genocide Foundation, violates all of those principles. They created these death traps where they kill 100 people a day, replacing the UNRWA system, which worked for decades. And so humanitarianism is gone. International law is gone. The courts are gone. Diplomacy's gone. And we need to look at the word occupation, because in history, when you have had occupation, the paradigm I think of occupation whenever people talk about occupation is probably like post-World War II, right? I think that's what they're talking about, is the Americans and Russians and French and British occupying Germany, occupying Berlin, and dividing Germany into zones. So then they put down all these rules about what occupying powers are supposed to do, the responsibility to the civilian population, the importance of, and the occupier is supposed to leave after everything is set up. So all of that is like, they say that those are the laws or the international law around occupation, but it was designed specifically around how these other white countries were going to occupy Germany. Let's not fancy foot around what this actually was about, because the scramble for Africa, colonialism in Asia, the genocides of the Americas had already happened long before these laws about how the international law of occupation was specified. But just like a few of the assumptions here of behind the law of occupation, the occupying power is not allowed to starve the population. The occupying power is not allowed to deny food and medicine to the occupation. The occupying power is not allowed to. The occupying power, people always point out, has no right of self-defense against the population, right? You cannot claim self-defense. Armed resistance to occupation is a right under international law. Here's the thing. Occupation assumes that there's some kind of land, buildings, society, right? It puts on limits on what you can do as far as policing goes, what you're allowed to do as an occupier. But talking about occupying Gaza now, that the Israelis have dropped 8 Hiroshima equivalent nuclear bombs, that now that the Israelis have destroyed 90+% of Gaza and are now bombing the tents that people have set up, and then bombing the bombs, the craters that they've bombed. The whole concept of an occupation now it has become quite strange. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what it's the Israelis are motivated now by pathology rather than objectives. What are they occupying? They've made it into a complete moonscape. The aerial photos that came out yesterday or the day before. When they say the Israelis want to build beachfront property, like, there was beachfront property before October 7th. There were beaches, there were resorts, there was all kinds of wonderful things. The Israelis destroyed it all. Now, like, is there some Israeli way of building all of this that is different from the Gaza way? When the Israelis stole Palestinian homes in 1948, they stole the whole home. They stole the entire home. They sometimes stole the food that was on the table or in the cellars. They stole everything. That's what they're doing in Jerusalem now. They're doing that in the West Bank. They steal people's homes. They steal the physical infrastructure. What they've done in Gaza is something very different. They've destroyed everything. They've destroyed all of that infrastructure. For them to occupy it, they would have to rebuild it. And rebuilding it is trillions of dollars. That's a project, if it's on the assumption that it's going to be Palestinians rebuilding it, it's going to be a project that Palestinians are sponsored, by probably other Arab countries, other countries of the world. It's going to be a project that takes a long time, decades maybe, and maybe trillions of dollars. I don't even. It's totally unfathomable. So when they say they're going to bring back the Palestinian Authority to rule this, it's totally. It's a total disconnect. Maybe in 2023 you could have talked about that, but what are they exactly talking about occupying now? Who's going to occupy that? Who's going to be the subcontractor in charge of that? What we're talking about now is the only thing that makes sense to happen now is the Hamas demands. That's it. The Hamas demands are the Israelis withdraw, they open the crossings, they exchange their prisoners for Palestinian prisoners, and they allow the rebuilding. And like, I think that's the only way this is going to end. And I really mean by that if they decide to do this, keep doing this in Gaza for 5 more years, they're also going to do it in the West Bank, and they're also going to do it in Lebanon and Syria.
It's not enough. Like, how do you go through all of this only to go back to the standard? Like, I just can't. Like, think of the Ukraine conflict, for example, where Russia's like, yeah, we've given up 120,000 people over the course of this entire war. Ukraine might have lost maybe 1 million, but let's just go back to normal. It's like, no, dude, you've invested too much blood and treasure. Something has to change.
Yeah. I mean, this I think you're talking about like the so-called right of Israel to exist. Like, if you can forfeit the right to exist, it would have to be by committing these
genocide, or at the very least, like, let me ask you this: so, if in your wildest dreams, could you conceive of a one-state solution? Because I don't see a two-state solution coming to fruition.
No. This is the two-state solution. This is like whenever people say like, "What about a two-state solution?" This is the two-state solution. It started in 1993 or whatever with Oslo, 91, and this is what we're living. We're living the two-state solution. This is the state that Israel designed, that the Palestinian Authority agreed to, and this is what happens when you have a two-state. This is what the two-state solution is. So a one-state solution. So there's a principle. I can't remember the name. There's an Arabic name for the principles, and I saw this circulating a couple of days ago. And the idea of it was, there is going to be one state of Palestine. Jews will be welcome there if they're Jews who were there before, not settlers who came from Eastern Europe or Western Europe, but rather the Arab Jews. The Arab Jews from Palestine will always be part of Palestine. They will always be welcome. And when the Zionist settlers came, they massacred those Jews just like they massacred the Christians, just like they massacred the Muslims. So, I'll try to look it up. Maybe while we're talking, but or while if you want to have a little rant or something, I'll look it up so people can know. But it was this document called the principles, the principles of revolution or something, and it's apparently like a consensus document that's been around for a long time. And the idea is that everybody lives together. There's no like religious discrimination, anything like that. But it's one state and it's Palestine. The settlements are gone. The IDF is gone. The Israeli Air Force bombing everybody is gone. Israel doesn't control the land or sea or air. Zionists don't control what Palestinians eat or where they go or anything. That's
they can go to Cyprus.
That's where things have to go. What's that?
They can go to Cyprus.
Yeah,
Cyprus.
Well, if Cyprus will sell, if Cyprus is really gonna sell them, Cyprus, like what can you do?
Yeah, that is the funniest thing in the world. They're like, "Oh my God, the Israelis are taking over." It's like, no duh. No duh.
Well, apparently, there's Greek cities too. I've heard. I saw something about like Greek cities also having this.
Oh, that is the funniest thing in the world. It's like, oh my God, look at what they're doing. It's like, dude, we've been watching what they were doing. Where were you?
They're doing exactly. What a shock that they're doing exactly what they do everywhere else.
Yeah. I want to get to one more thing. This is concerning Syria for the moment. Mm-hmm. There is the belief, and I suspect the belief is right, that now that they put a terrorist in charge of Syria, that they're going to have Wahhabi death squads effectively attacking Lebanon, with the notion of weakening Hezbollah, at the very least expanding Hezbollah, forcing it to fight on two sides. Is that what you're seeing on this? Like that, for all intents and purposes, al-Jilani is a puppet. I mean, well, obviously he's a Western puppet. They for God's sake, they had sanctions on the guy, and they just removed the bounty on his head. But is that how you see this unfolding? Because there was a weird meeting between the Russians and the new terrorist government, where you would think that the Russians will be in somewhat of a precarious position here, considering that this guy is effectively a tool of the West. Erdogan is a snake and can't be trusted. And yet the Russians are like, we're going to keep our military base there. And I understand why they want to keep their base there. I'm just saying it's fraught with, let's say, difficulties. Give me your take on this. What do you make of this?
I did manage to look it up. It's called the Thawabit. Al-Thawabit al-Wataniya, the Palestinian fundamental principles, Palestinian red lines, the right to resistance, the right to self-determination, Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine, the right of return. That's the Thawabit. Yeah. It's coined by the Palestinian National Council in 1977. So that's what I was thinking of. Okay, so now Syria. So the Syria situation. Yes, everything you said is right. But when a puppet of the West is, of course, true. Jolani, I remember reading when the fall of Syria was happening last year. There was someone who was talking about the system of prisons that the U.S. has operated in Iraq, where they had all these thousands of prisoners, and they tortured them and they broke them psychologically. And there's a whole story here historically of the way that imperialists will imprison people, and then when those people come out of prisons, they can find the right person who will serve them perfectly.
After being broken in that prison.
Yeah, exactly. And as a condition of getting out or whatever. And like a lot of the core of these people in Al Qaeda or ISIS, whatever Jolani were formed in that thing. You remember the Americans took over Iraq in 2003, right?
Right.
And they, what the first things the Americans do when they take over a place is make a prison. That's the most American thing to do, right? That's the most, they did it in Afghanistan, they did it in Iraq.
Prison?
They do it before they occupy a place. In El Salvador, they have the prison, and they haven't even taken over El Salvador yet. So they're doing, the first thing they do is the prison, and then they use these prisons. The Israelis do it too. They use these prisons to produce the kind of person that they need to sustain the kinds of things that they want. So Jolani is that, but Jolani is not just a puppet of the West. He is such a great puppet that he's also a puppet of Turkey. And Turkey, everything that's happening in Syria, you've got to watch Turkey. You've got to watch Turkey because Turkey is absolute. What do you call it?
Snake.
They serve the West. Yes, they serve the West, but they also are unreliable to the West. They're not even a reliable ally to the West. So they have these agendas. Ultimately, I think they serve the West, but they do a lot of ambiguity. They do a lot of perfidy, and they try to keep a relationship with the Russians. I think our mutual friend Laith Maroof and I see eye to eye on the Russian issue. Russia in the Middle East is not a solid ally of.
So you and Laith agree on this one. Interesting.
Absolutely.
The Russians will deeply disagree with you, by the way.
Obviously. But like, it's devastating to me. It's devastating. It was devastating to see that, and it's a devastating conclusion for me to come to because as someone who follows the history of the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union also was pretty unreliable as an ally. They were one of the first countries to recognize Israel. So Russia also has a special relationship with Israel, and Putin has said this many times. The alliance that Russia had with Syria exempted Israel. It had a free, Russia said, okay, listen, we will protect you, Syria, with our air defense umbrella from ISIS, but not from Israel. If Israel wants to bomb you, Israel can bomb you. We are not involved in Israel bombing you. And so it's the stupidest alliance. It's the stupidest protection, because if you have coordination between ISIS and Israel, then ISIS can just say, hey, Israel, do you mind doing the bombing? Because Russia's not protecting Syria from that, and we'll do these other things.
But did Syria have its own air defense? I mean, it wasn't like Syria didn't have its own
old air defense was provided by the Soviet Union, right? Syria's air defense, when they tried to upgrade it, they were trying to get Russian systems, and Russia did give them some systems, but Russia gave them systems and operated those systems basically to prevent the Americans from providing the air force to enable Al Qaeda takeover. By the time of last year, Syria's air defenses had been degraded by continuous Israeli attack, and the army collapsed for a whole bunch of reasons that we still, I don't think, necessarily know, but I do think that Russia made some kind of deal with Turkey, and that has a lot to do with it. The sudden and inexplicable collapse of the Syrian military.
I cringe at that.
I'm sorry. I know. I cringe too, but I had to come to that conclusion.
I cringe at that argument for a very basic reason. It's not in Russia's interest to lose Syria. Meaning,
they kept what they wanted from Syria. They have those ports. That was all they really wanted. That's all they wanted.
as you pointed out, Erdogan is part of a NATO nation. Erdogan flows with the wind. He is going to Ukraine in the next week or so to basically tell Zelensky, we need you to win the war, we back you in this war, and all of this other stuff. Erdogan flows with the wind. He's a member of NATO. And so the idea that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to give up this relationship that we've had over the course of the last 50, 60 years, however long, and we're going to trust Istanbul to ensure that our ports remain intact.
Yeah,
that's
because
outrageous.
Russia can hurt Turkey, but Turkey can hurt Russia. So Russia's not interested in, like, Russia and Turkey have the most fraught for centuries. They've had the most fraught relationship, right? And they don't. Neither of them want to fully alienate the other. So they were continuously negotiating these things.
But if Turkey could get an advantage, it would take it. And
yeah, they did.
It did hurt the Russians to lose Syria.
Yeah,
I mean that's what they were. Yeah. So Istanbul did have the capability of damaging Russia. I mean, if they opened the Black Sea, for example, to NATO countries, that would hurt the Russians. They do have the capability of doing so. Is my point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. But like again, this is kind of like the theme of our discussion today, which is the circumstances in which you make a deal. So I don't think Russia, I don't think Russia loved having to make this deal with Turkey, but I think they did. I think they did make it, and I think they probably tried to. Maybe they made a deal to. I don't think anybody's seen Assad,
No.
but maybe they made the deal partly to save Assad's life or something, to prevent him from being strung up. And
well, see, the way Leif talks about it is that they absconded him.
They never let him go back. Which, again, it's total within the data points that we have. It's very possible to me, what he describes, because we didn't see him back in Syria. We saw him go to Russia, and then they said he was in Russia.
Yeah, he became a dentist or something like that, or picked up on whatever he was doing.
There was no.
The Russian. I would just be clear. The Russian point of view is that look, we were defending Syria. The Iranians were defending Syria, but Syria wasn't defending itself. And the troops effectively start to melt away.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can defend a country that is not going to defend itself. That is the argument they make.
I know, but why did a country that defended itself for 15 years just suddenly stop defending itself? Why?
Attrition. I mean, you had a situation where the troops were getting paid very little. You had the oil that was being stolen, the wheat that was being stolen, the economy that was in shatters. And you had Assad, who, for whatever reason, like many of these leaders, decide they want to make deals with monsters. And he gets closer and closer to some of the other Arab states. And he gets played for a sucker. That's
it could be. It could be. Like I said, there are lots of stories that fit. That one seems to me to be very self-aggrandizing for Russia.
Yes,
it's just like, we did nothing wrong. It was the Arabs' fault.
I'm not saying they did nothing wrong.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
And I don't know if you watch Nima Al-Khorshid and Alex Krainer was on there. He's a Croatian guy. He's like
he's great. He comes on the show all the time.
But he's on your show too. I probably watched him on your show now. But he early on, like when Syria was collapsing, I think Nima asked him, like, what do you think is going on? And he was just like, look, I was in the Croatian. I think he was in the Croatian army or something. He was just like, if you have any experience in the military, the idea of not fighting because you haven't been paid, that's not a thing. No, like a military is like, we go and we fight. Like, so the argument that they hadn't been paid in a while and that it was financially dysfunctional, like they were at their posts, they had their weapons, they would have fought. Like what it looks like is they were given orders to retreat, and they were continuously given orders to retreat until it was too late to do anything, and they were more or less following their orders. So something really sneaky happened there. Something really sneaky and sinister happened in the collapse of Syria that we don't fully know. But I think to me, betrayal by allies makes the most sense.
Fair enough. Yeah, Link and I argue on this also, right?
Yeah.
So no, I'm fascinated by it. And Daniel Kabbalah, he's going to write the book on Syria. So I'm super eager to see what he puts in that book on how he believes it collapsed. Justin, man, thank you for this. Justin Podur, he's host of Anti-Empire podcast. I'm sorry, Anti-Empire Project podcast and YouTube channel. Definitely check him out. I really appreciate this, and I really want you to come back so we can continue.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks. I love your channel, man. I'll keep watching. I'll probably turn this off and keep watching right now.
I appreciate that. You have a good one, okay? Be safe.
Okay, take care.